Putting something in for something else. So let's just remind ourselves. It's when we replace a variable, right, in algebra with a value. Now, sometimes our substitution is going to be really easy. We're going to replace that variable with a number. It's going to tell me x equals 10. Well, guess what we're going to put into the problem? 10. Whenever you see the variable x, you're going to put the number 10. That's pretty straightforward, right? Right. Other times, we're going to substitute an algebraic expression into the problem. So you might be substituting something like x plus 7 or 3x minus 12. You might be putting algebra into it.
Algebra.
So when you are substituting, I cannot say this enough times. When substituting, use parentheses. Because sometimes we're going to be substituting an algebraic piece. And if you don't have those parentheses with your substitution, you're going to miss out on some key steps. Okay, let's talk some rules. So this is kind of before you start, but step number 1. One equation or maybe both, but minimum one equation needs to be written y equals or x equals. One equation must have an isolated variable. It doesn't really matter which one. You're going to see most of them written y equals because that's linear, right? But one of your equations needs to be y equals. If it's not written y equals, could you rearrange it? Yeah. So one equation, or both of them, needs to be written as y equals. Now this is where we kind of diverge. Are you ready? So I'm going to draw kind of like a choose your own adventure type situation here. If both are y equals or x equals, and over here if one is y equals or x equals. See what I'm doing? If none of them are y equals or x equals, you need to make one of them become y equals. Good? Okay. If both of them are y equals, you are going to set them equal to each other. You're going to set them equal to each other. I guess that should be labeled 1. Set them equal to each other. Then 2, solve for the variable. Step 3, substitute the variable value into one of the original problems. So, if they're both y equals, you're going to set them equal to each other. You're going to smush them together. And you're going to solve for the variable. Algebra at its finest. When you solve for a variable, you get an answer. You get something like x equals 10, correct? Or whatever. Then you're going to take that answer, x equals 10, and substitute it into one of the original problems. Doesn't matter which one. You're going to solve for the other variable. And then you write the ordered pair. And we're going to do one together. We're going to go to page 79, and we're going to do the example. Are we ready? Make sure you refer back to this, both are y equals, or x equals. We're going to do this guy first. Ready? Okay. Practice. Example 1. I forgot what problem I was doing. This one. Y equals negative 1/3 x plus 2. Y equals negative 2x minus 3. They're both y equals. Do you agree? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look. Y equals. Y equals. If they are both y equals, set them equal to each other. So instead of having two separate problems, this is how this kind of works. Y is the same thing, that's what equals means, as negative 1/3 x plus 2, correct? So that means instead of the variable y, I could substitute this value. So down here, instead of the variable y, I'm substituting this value. I just set them equal to each other. Negative 1/3 x plus 2 is equal to negative 2x minus 3. Because they're both y equals. Instead of the variable y, I'm substituting the other problem into it. Now, algebra is okay. We'll survive. I want to solve for the variable now. Do you agree? Okay. Draw a line down the equal sign. I have two variables. Which one am I going to solve for? Oh, wait, I need to combine them first, right? I'm going to move one of them over to the other side. I'm going to add 2x. Could you add 1/3 to both sides? Doesn't matter. Yeah, it works both ways. Negative 1/3 plus 2, calculators are great, great tools, is 1 2/3 x. Plus 2 equals -3. Do you agree? Now I've got a variable. It's a two-step equation. What do I do now to solve? Subtract 2. 1 2/3 x equals -5. Now what do I do? Divide by 1 2/3 x, or 1 2/3. -5 divided by 1 2/3, yes? -3. Set them equal to each other. Solve for the variable. Now what do I do? So I'm going to substitute my answer that I just found into one of the original problems. I'm going to pick the bottom problem. Guess why I'm going to pick the bottom problem over the top problem? Yeah, there's no fraction. And you guys are scared of fractions, right? You can pick the top one. You can pick the bottom one. It doesn't matter because you're going to get the same answer for both of them. Y equals -2, and instead of x, what am I putting? -3 minus 3. I substitute this answer into one of these problems. It does not matter which one. So y equals, what's -2 times -3? +6. Minus 3 is, and what's my last step? Write it as an ordered pair, x comma y. What's my answer? -3 is my x. What's my y value? 3. That's my solution. Go fast. All right, so can I move? Yes? If only one of them is this, that means one is standard form. I guess I'll put it over here. I'll give you the example first. Example 2. One is standard form and one is y equals or x equals or whatever. So there's one. But the other one is 5x plus 4y equals 11. I can't set them equal to each other because they're not both y equals or x equals or whatever it is. Right? One is in slope-intercept and one's in standard. Now you could change this to become standard or slope-intercept form and then set them equal to each other, but that's more work than it's worth. Right? You could subtract 5x from both sides and then divide both sides by 4, but that's going to get pretty decimal heavily. All right, so if one is x equals instead of both. You are going to substitute what y equals into the other equation. You're going to substitute what y equals into the other equation. And we're going to work these problems together as we go through the steps. What does y equal? Substitute what y equals. What does y equal? X minus 4. You're going to take x minus 4, because that's what y equals, and I'm going to put this into the other equation. Instead of y, I'm going to put this problem in here. Instead of the variable y, and sometimes it helps, some people like to do this, like y equals, and then down here I'm going to put y, right? So instead of y, I'm going to put x minus 4. So that means 5x plus 4, but instead of y, I'm putting x minus 4 equals 11. I guess I can move that up. Instead of y, it says substitute what y equals into the other problem, the other equation. So y equals x minus 4. That means instead of the variable y, I replaced it with x minus 4. We're going to solve for the variable. So over here, it's a multi-step problem, right? 5x does not change, but what does this become? Plus 4x minus 16 equals 11. Now what do I do? 5x plus 4x is 9x minus 16 equals 11. Now what do I do? Add 16 to both sides. 9x equals 27. Divide by 9. Might be mental math. X equals 3. So again, if one of them is y equals or x equals, you substitute what your y equals into the other equation. What if your problem, instead of being y equals, is x equals? Would you substitute the x equals into the other equation, right? Then we solve for the variable. I did that. I got x equals 3. What do you think I'm going to do now? Yeah, I'm going to substitute the variable value into one of the original problems. Here's a hint. You can pick whichever one you want. Go for the y equals problem, or x equals. It's going to be less work. I mean, half a step less, but still. Substitute the variable value, whatever you figure out the answer is, take that answer and put it back into one of the original problems. For example, my answer over here was x equals 3. So I can go up to this equation and replace x with the number 3, or I can go down to this equation and replace x with the number 3. Doesn't matter which one, I'm going to get the same answer no matter what, as long as your math is sound. But if you pick this guy, it's less work. Y equals 3 minus 4. What does y equal? Negative 1. What's my answer?
3 comma negative 1.
3 comma negative 1. So to finish my directions, step 4 is solve for the variable. And step 5 is write the ordered pair.